What's up? Gonna get a link out here to the Twitter Nation. Okay. Hello. Welcome. Looking a little messy here. I got a drink here this time. So that's good. There's lots of reasons to celebrate. So we are live on Twitter as well. What's up, Crystal King? Thanks for dropping by. Hope you can stay here a while, throw in your comments. We are on Twitter as well. I tried to schedule a Twitter space, but then it got messed up for some reason. So I had to start another one. So I am apparently live on Twitter too. So you may hear other voices as people request to have the stage. So we'll let them on. First question is, what am I drinking? I don't know if I can do this because I YouTube if I'm going to get like my video taken down, which would suck. But I don't know. I got enough stuff in here maybe that I'd get taken down anyways. But I'm drinking a Sam Adams Cold Snap. So that is my favorite beer. No audio? What? No audio on Twitter or YouTube? Okay. Whew. Man, that would be scary. That wouldn't be the first time. Actually, last time we had some problems. So okay, well, hold on. I got to drink my. Try not to drink in the mic here. Okay, great. Let me get my notes up for the live stream. I'm going to try and set it up such that I can see the chat um, in the YouTube chat. So let me get my notes up here for this. So I've got a bunch of stuff. Nick, heads up, I'm gonna be dropping your name here a couple times. It's all good. So, but if you have any thoughts on there, I'd totally welcome. All right. So first off, uh, I was in a meeting this week that was recorded and it should be posted. So it was with DY, members of Helium, and also members of the community, kind of around this Denylist that's going on. So in there, we talked about the news this week of a Helium Denylist that caused a lot of miners to get switched off for their rewards. So this was deployed to the miners themselves, and there were some in there that that were basically unintentional. I think it was about 3,000 hotspots that were not. It wasn't like they should have been right, but for some reason it was an inadvertent influx of hotspots. So there's in total is about 30,000 hotspots on there, and so people got to work very quickly, and the list was reverse engineered such that for the sleuths out there, they could find all those hotspots like their names, and now they're suspected of gaming. Well, now they've been doxxed, and kind of Hotspotty has gone one step farther and made a layer on their map to point them out as well. So still on that list is Clever Smoke Raven, which I've noticed because Clever Smoke Raven is kind of in my neighborhood within I think a few miles of me, maybe within 10 miles, and it's actually moved once from where I saw it last. So not that that's huge news, but that was one of the ones that got a lot of attention. Um, So you can check out Hotspotty on their app. I usually put a link in the description to their website, so you can sign up with them. And so last week on a similar stream, Gristle King, aka or Nick, was also had some some choice 4-letter words for gamers. So I appreciate that energy. Yeah. So one of his own miners was affected due to the nature of very remote coverage backhauling. So later in the week, he wrote an article about how people are cheating. So if you're interested in that, I'll get the article in the notes here, or if Nick, if you want to throw that in the chat, you're more than welcome to. So there there's one more way that you can kind of help out if you suspect hotspots of gaming. You can go to susspots.com. That's suspots.com. We'll put that in the show notes as well, and you can enter them there. It is recommended that you do your research. You've got to know what's going on, what you expect them of doing, and put the reasons in there. So back to the meeting, we discussed the blatant gaming that was going on, and there was clear coverage providers and legit setups, and then there's this very gray area of incorrectly asserted hotspots, incorrect antenna information, and so on and so forth. And so it was like, how do you start drawing lines in the sand? And it's a very complex problem. And so there was a lot of frustration even in the community about the centralization of this, right? Denying people the right to participate in the network. That just goes against a lot of the beliefs of people in this community. And from my belief of the conversations that I've had with many of Helium staff, DY members, and the community at large, no one really wants to have this centralized. They don't like this. It goes against what the network that they're trying to build. So for them to have to do this is like, it sucks. I remember in my early days of moderating, I didn't want to ban anybody. I still don't. I hate it. I think that we should, it's getting a little bit of philosophy, but I think we need to work out our differences and talk about them, and turn our assumptions to agreements, and just work it out, right? Look to evidence to what supports us. Um, so yeah, just there's a lot of people that are having some frustration with this, and I think the in general, Helium's taken some heat about it. So if you have some thoughts about that, certainly throw them in the comments, throw them in the chat, and we can bring them up here. I'm just checking Twitter here, and there is nobody in the Twitter space, so I'm hoping that somebody is in there. I'm going to try and share it again just to see if people are on Twitter or on YouTube. Hopefully the internet gets it. Okay, so talked with the community, talked with Helium, and was in this meeting. And really the votes that took place this week reiterate multiple times that these are temporary measures. The Denylist, they don't want to maintain censorship. I mean, or denying earnings to people on the network. They don't want to do that, but it's temporary. So even at the fairly low percentage of gaming, so there's been some numbers thrown out, 20% or 2% or 5%, and at least the number that I heard was about 5%. And while the easy ones were taken out quite easily, it's still grown to the point where there's a feeling of undermining the intention and of the network. There's been no leaks, so to speak, but when somebody games, it takes away earnings from all of us as they get divided out, such that it takes away from all of us. So it's like a little tiny knife eating away at our earnings, and it does add up. So it got to the point where action was felt like leadership need to take action. And so Amir Halim, he wrote the first draft of the deny list, and then it was handed over to the community to really take forth and go forward on. So yeah, that's where we're at now. More on that meeting is that the general sentiment was that nobody wants to make those hard calls and deny earnings, but of course it's what we're dealing with, and there's many legit providers of coverage out there that are very frustrated about this as well. And people that I don't even talk to, it was mentioned in the meeting multiple times that the community is very frustrated about this and the deny lists, and there's just a lot of kind of growing tensions about it. So I wanted to talk about this right away. I really wanted to just talk about 5G tonight, but I was like, well, let's spend a little bit of time on this. So um, let's see here. Next point was it was noted that during the meeting, actually multiple times, that while putting a minor on the list is quite easy. I mean, like if you got enough evidence, yeah, you can put it on. But the harder thing is getting it off the list. That's going to be the longer task. Can you imagine if you put 30,000 hotspots on a deny list? And then provide a process for them to get their hotspot off that list. Now, somebody has to go through that. Somebody has to go through and evaluate each case and all the parameters and see if they're gaming or not. And now, if they're denying rewards, well, then there's going to have to be some analysis of those results, because technically it's still being processed, but it's being denied on the blockchain. So that is a little bit of advantage, but there's still going to have to be even potentially some legwork to get an interface for them to go look at the data on chain for that. So putting together a group of people to admin that is a very tough task, and really a costly task. If it can't be taken by the community, then who's going to do that? And so that was the big sticking point in there. And so the one point that was noted was that undermining the decentralized natures of the validators would be a very expensive task. So if somebody was to game, set up so that they could set up all these miners, be making so much HNT, and then try and get validators to play a part in their game, and even if they are on a deny list, to still inject earnings their way. So that would be really expensive. And I think it was quoted in the high millions, if not $1 billion, to make that happen. So that's really kind of off the table. I mean, it would be very, very difficult to do that. Let's see here. So the next one would be getting those people of reviewing cases and taking off the miners off the list. So no one wants to be a target there either, right? So the first time when I started my YouTube channel, and very naive, I got a message one day online that said, "Hey, I noticed I was driving around in looking out, scoping out Helium." This was when Helium was very young, and very much you could oh yeah, there's a couple, there's one here and one there, and I could drive around to those. And they ended up basically correlating the rooftop, the video that I had, and my install location. So that became that was eye-opening for me. So I was like, ooh, that they knew where I lived. And so now that instance was fairly good natured, but if someone had ill intentions, well, then that changes the story. So if somebody's on this review committee and it's not, and it's kind of still that's the name, like the manufacturing oversight committee, like it's very public who's on that list. So if somebody wants to go and create some nasty circumstances for them, then but this is different. This is like gamers take, basically now you got the black hats, white hats, like warring on each other. Oh man, it's just very complex. So how do you decentralize this? And at the end, it's like pointing it back at the code, because everybody agreed in the entire meeting that bottom line, they're taking and they're gaming the way that the coverage is proved, right? So any changes that have to be made in the code to basically just filter out that. Like you can't, you put a miner in a basement, you're not going to get any coverage more than likely. So that's just naturally how things are rewarded or not rewarded, right? So it's basically that code needs to go in the coverage algorithms and the rewarding algorithms, such that it's not that you don't have to have a deny list, and everybody wants to get at that. But right now there's some weak points in the setup. So basically the community is taking it very, very seriously. And Helium leadership, DY, is taking it very seriously. But the nature of that meeting was very, very on point. And right away at the beginning, it was said, hey, we want to record this. Please make an effort to record this and get this out to the community because they are owed it. And so that's why I wanted to like record not only the Twitter space, but obviously on the YouTube. Is basically just get these thoughts from everybody. What do you think about this? What are your frustrations? What do you agree with? What can we do? What, in light of this, and how do we go forward? If you've got some thoughts, drop them in the comments. Get on Helium Discord. It's just really important that we get as much feedback as we can to make the best decisions. We are way brighter collectively than we are individually. So we can build on each other, and that's what got us where we are now. So, but true to the cliche, what got us here won't get us to there. So we have to think differently. So uh, that's how we work it out with each other, and we'll get there. We're going to figure out these problems and move forward. I think that these are small, but at some point you have to deal with this. So now, right? No time like the present. So there's more work to be done. I really encourage you to review the video of that meeting between Helium and DY when you get the chance. As soon as it's posted, because I don't think it is posted yet, I'll link it in the description so you can review that, and you can leave your comments on this video, on that video, wherever it's posted, in the Discord. Don't care. Tag me. I don't care. I'd love to know your thoughts just to help represent that in the community. All right. I'm not seeing any questions yet on the gaming Denylist, all that information. If you've got some questions, put them down now. Otherwise, we're going to switch gears and go to the 5G stuff. And I'm going to take another drink. Who are the Desi? Is it DY? I'm assuming an autocorrect. Let the people vote on mapping, maybe to find these little cheaters. Mapping will help. There's more data that will be done. We did talk about that a little bit in the meeting. Again, you'll see that on the notes, but there was the mention of mappers. Like, yeah, it would really help, but also, a good guy with a mapper is great, and also a bad guy can have a mapper too. So that's the trouble with these. One of the interesting things is that even though the LoRa information is encrypted, there's instance of injecting data around that. So mapping data could technically be gamed with as well. So that's a little bit harder. It's a complex problem, right? Unless you encrypt the entire thing, which there is a notion of doing. So that's a bit harder one. I think I missed one point that I want to throw another shout out to Gristle King. He wrote an article talking about how they're gaming, and it's not like a how-to guide on how to game. It's just more of like, here are the things that exist that people are leveraging. And I remember even going back to a previous job, we were working with some equipment where we were finding that some data that we were trying to get out to the particular place, and it was done through cellular connections, and basically the cellular connection kept going down like randomly. And so when we were trying to solve that problem, of course we would have the little device there with us at our desk, but then it would just emit such glorious coverage. Like, you're like, what do we do? Like, we can't just like cover it in metal. Like, we still need some signal to get out. So we basically just did some experimenting to get it to a point where we could get the signal to flake in and out and replicate it. So basically gamers are doing like kind of the same thing in that instance. That they're, everything. That's the hard part about all this, is that you want a very testable system, right? Because then you can throw all these combinations together in very real world situations and test it out and make sure it's working. And even with each iteration of software that you release, you can throw all of that testing at it again and again and again and make it more with more quality. But in order to test it, you also have to have these kind of ties into the system as well. So it's frustrating and it's a complex problem. And but we still got to have the conversation and move forward. And if who knows, maybe the deny list is a thing that will be per, perpetuitous. It will go forever. Maybe that's what always has to happen. But then it's like, okay, how do we do that? Which is where the conversation led this week. So, all right, if you have more conversation or comments, conversation, if you want to, hit me up on Discord, hit any of the members that you see in that video. They all very much care about the situation and listening to people. So hit them up and get them your thoughts. Talk about it on Discord. So appreciate your comments. I know that even people that are in the know will come back and watch this video and then read the chat, read the comments later, and that will be helpful information to flow back. So there's more that can just happen of just like, oh, I didn't think about that. I'm going to write that down. Who knows? Maybe it sparks some idea. All right, let's switch to 5G stuff. So this is super exciting. So I'm going to use basically, I'm going to put a huge shout out to Steve from at DYGo site on Twitter. So he put on a community Q&A with Boris Rensky. He's the CEO of FreedomFi. And so I'm gonna weave my notes around these responses because I just read it and I blew my mind, and I was so much more excited about where 5G is going. And so this is going to be, I'm not going to share my screen like I did last time. I'm just going to talk through this and I kind of bolded some notes and stuff, but I'll talk through it. So the first one of the first questions that I thought was interesting was FreedomFi they're like, hey, are they going to come out with new gateways that will support higher pass-through ratios? And one note that they said is that FreedomFi gateways are capable of 1 gigabyte per second. So even though the last video that I did on it was that it was, I think it was like 130 megabytes per second, that they're capable of much more. So already we're buying this hardware and there's more capabilities in there. It's just not being utilized at this point. So that's awesome. And 1 gigabyte per second, of course, is quite a bit. There's some other stuff that we'll get to later on that's very encouraging as well. So there's more to be done. So I don't think just by buying a FreedomFi gateway, because immediately when I found out that mine are 100, like the one that I have, the small cell is 130 megabytes per second, then I'm like, oh crap, now I'm gonna have to upgrade again really soon. No. So I was very happy to hear that. And the other big news was that they released this week was that there is 4 new radios, 5G radios coming out. And they're all from buy cells. You can go look at the announcement. I'm going to try and actually link it here. I'll throw it in the YouTube chat here. Oh, too many. I'm going to have to do that later then. I'll throw it in the description because it was too long. The link was too long. So, but yeah, those ones are the Nova 430i, the Nova 430, the Nova 436Q, and the Neutrino 430 base station. Now, I think it was the Neutrino 430 base station. As I looked at the picture, it looked a lot like Amir Halim's first kind of when he talked about Helium going 5G when he had a test install at his place. So I think that was what it was, but I'm not sure. One thing about these is that they do require a GPS connection, unless you're certified, which we'll get into later, because that was one of my lingering questions that I had about all of this was that I've seen some notion of certification, and I didn't know how. Should it be required? Should it not? What's the rub there? Okay. The next one was what what do we get when we get access to the Magma dashboard? And so there's apparently another dashboard in there that is Magma, which is like I think it's like the open source implementation of 5G. I think if I got that wrong, please correct me. But I guess it's very, very complicated. It said that there's too many knobs. Um, so they're kind of hiding it right now, and they'll be exposing some later. But one of the things that they're giving control to us for is the ability to own SIMs for private LTE 5G use cases. So I thought this was really, really interesting in its implication, because I didn't. So when I did my video for the small cell, they did give a SIM card to the first, like, I think it was like 150 users or purchasers of the small cell. And I didn't understand it other than, okay, so I put it in my phone and then that's it. Like, I do some testing, like, that's cool, but I didn't understand what it was for. Like, what's the utility? Like, why would I want to buy this? Why would I put this SIM card everywhere? And I wasn't thinking about like the potential implications of a private use. So immediately my mind went to setting up my own network, such that, say, I I know of some space, or some open area. Perhaps I got a remote install location that's within range of my Freedom Fi uh, radio. Well, then people would be able to. Oh, there we go. Oh, that's what had happened. I said 750 and I meant 650. That's why. Oh my goodness, that sucks. So all these people on tweeters are not going to be part of this. So that sucks. My bad. I'll pause real quick and answer a question. It says, how much are you making each day with the 5G Freedom Fi? None. Nobody's earning anything. We are still in test net. That was the other main thing and I knew we were in beta mode, but basically nobody is making any money with 5G. If that's not the case, prove me wrong. But I am pretty sure that nobody with Freedom Fi radio right now is making any HNT at all from this. It's still in testing, and they give some dates as to when they think that might in this Q&A. All right, so the other use case that I thought of was, I like to talk about farms a lot. So because I'm primarily in an agricultural, I grew up a lot in agricultural communities. So I thought about people working in the field. So one of the things that people did was they went out and pulled weeds out of fields. And so you have the ability to potentially give everybody on your staff for that day that shows up a cell phone, right? If they get hurt, hey, you call me, you get a hold of me, and you have coverage. But it's a private network, so it could be very, very cheaper, much cheaper to operate that and kind of get that utility. Because, like, right, if there's an emergency, please call me, and then this phone doesn't work outside of here. So it'd be kind of like a trustless operation. So I think that would be really, really cool application. All right. So that was the other instance that I thought of. Maybe another one is you could give it to a child or attach it to a pet, or for another hotspot, then the ramifications are huge. If I could get some sort of like cellular, connection device, then I could put that SIM card in there and then do helium mining so you have your backhaul connection, right? You need a connection to the internet to provide LoRa coverage, but then basically you could use your Freedom Fi radio to point it at your Helium hotspot that's really far away, a lot farther than the 300 meters, and then you are still abiding by the rules put forth by Helium about spreading out the miners. So that is and then we'd still have to go around the implications of having like IPs and stuff. So I don't know how they would deal with that, but I think that they could work with something like that. I don't know. If you got some comments, throw it in the description. This is all like kind of ethereal thinking. I'm like, oh, that could work. So, Um, Another big thing that they talked about, this was huge. If you think that this is like, oh, we're just in beta mode, nobody's there, we just have Gig Sky and Dish, and like, so what? Who cares? So um, they gave some information about looking at this uh, roadmap and where things are at in the list. And so right as I'm about to read this, the question pops up: would you still pick up a 5G Freedom Fi? So after I read what I'm about to read, I think the answer is going to be clear in my mind, at least. So they asked, how many? Can we get a general idea of offload agreement pipeline? How many MNOs, MVNOs are, and what stages of agreement are they from 1 to 10? One, just we met for the first time, or 10 is we're waiting to announce, right? I love this question. It's an amazing question, figuring out where things are at. So they have a tier one MNO, and I dropped some examples of what a tier one MNO is. I tried to just do some quick Googling before, as I was researching this, and I didn't have the exact, I couldn't get exact names of an MNO. But so there, a tier one MNO is at a 4 out of 10. So they have Freedom Fi's equipment in their lab, and they're working on roaming architecture. So that's really cool. So already tier one at a 4, that's just amazing. So an MVNO, they have, uh, let's see here, if I read this correctly, we have two of them. And then they're at a 7. So there's a roaming architecture agreed, and then they're contracting with another MVNO, I think. Or maybe there's another MVNO that has their equipment working in a lab and also working on roaming architecture. The way I formatted this, it got thrown off. But basically, there's a lot more in what's ahead. Like the fact of, like, they're not even going to launch for, you can't even order an outdoor radio until April 1st. Cue the April 1st, April Fool's Day jokes. Hopefully that's not going to be a rug that they pull on us and throw the data out. But I think still, like from this announcements, and I'll get to those, like the words around them, but I think May is really what they're targeting. So they're going to have to get a little bit of the network, out there and see it potentially deployed, and then go from there. So we're looking at basically May is when you'd have that first instance of when you'd be able to make HNT via your 5G equipment, is from what I am gathering on this data. Quick question here: what kind of LoRa antenna do you have hooked up to the Freedom 5G? So basically, you can use any antenna, whether you want, any antenna that you're using for LoRa right now, you can use with the Freedom Fi. You just have to type it in and make sure that you're sending the information, and then the network does its thing and alters the signal accordingly. So use whatever you're using right now. That's what I've done. Can you just, okay, we'll skip that question. Helium and Freedom 5 plans were to target indoor locations as well. Why offer an outdoor radio? Indoor locations were the initial focus. Why did all of a sudden we switch directions, right? And so basically they're saying that they think there is a market for both. And I mean, with the agreements that are already in place or very much on the horizon, there's definitely a market for both. So one other interesting thing on this, and I'm really sad, I'm gonna have to make sure that we end it in time so I can catch the Twitter space where we'll talk about this some more. If you have questions, then you want to have a dialogue back and forth, jump on Twitter after this. And then we'll keep going. So on there, I talked last week with someone who was in a company that's making plans to create basically a digital superhighway via this 5G Helium coverage to route data through. And they're even going as far as to like considering seeking funding to advance their plans faster. So if you think about it, basically they're just going to go along a road and do whatever they need to, and they're thinking about all the equipment that would be necessary to basically just plop these down as however often that they need to get an entire connection route going. So this is really cool. Like this is going much faster than I thought it would be. But yeah, it's really neat because right while we're in cities, it's like coverage is primarily in cities. Like getting it out to the roads is not really done. There might be a farm where they go put one up, but now we're thinking about where people travel, right? If I'm in the passenger seat, you can bet that I'm on my phone watching whatever I want to. YouTube, like listening to podcasts. Like I'm consuming a lot of data, listening to Spotify, right? There's all these things, all this data. So if they're starting to put these on routes, well, then all of a sudden it's just soaking up the HNT. So this is a very lucrative opportunity. So if you want to get in touch with them and collaborate some more, definitely reach out to me or jump on Twitter afterwards, and you can talk with them. So that's really cool. Yeah, I'll talk about it a little bit more later. Um, let's see here. What work remains to bring 5G on chain? Does Helium need to push change bars, or other stuff? So the official answer is we are still on 5G testnet. The official 5G launch is coming. But really, as I read the notes here, they still need to figure out the fiat to HNT connection software wise. So there's a bunch of stuff happening in the background that I think we'll have more words on later, if I understand right. Let's see here. Generally speaking, how do MVNOs view a project like Helium 5G? Oh my god, this was an amazing response, because I think everybody, even if I go back to a post that I made amongst family and friends a year ago, a lot of people were saying, "Oh, that's no, I'm not gonna." They weren't even engaging, and in their minds, basically, it was. Boris was quoted as saying that they're saying, "Oh, it's silliness. That will never work." And now they're actually converting to be genuinely curious about the approach. We are messing with them, right? Not in a nefarious way. We're causing them to think differently, this is like really close to the tipping point, if not pushing us over. I really think that, yeah, I'm just beside myself with that. That's just awesome. I'm gonna skip a few more questions. Again, I'll drop the link. You can read all the answers. Where does Freedom 5 see itself in the future? A hotspot maker, a SaaS provider, an operator? So I want to go on a quick. I'll make it brief. But I want to go on a quick rant, philosophical rant about direction. So there's a book that came out. I actually haven't even read it. I just presented the cliff notes of it, and I'm like, okay, that makes sense, right? Is called Playing to Win. So you gotta figure out where you're going to win, but at the same time, we're in this like constant state of flux. And I've been watching someone who also started their own hosting company for Helium, and so now they're immediately dividing their time between two things that they care about, and one will always win, right? Because if you suffer in both, the community will attack you on either side, right? They want what they want, right? um and so that's hard. When the more you split yourself, the less time you have, even for yourself, right? So this is a big thing about managing your personal backlog. You got to choose what is important to you, and that really matters. And so for me, I started this YouTube channel thinking, oh, I'm just going to help share some knowledge, right? And I had an opportunity to start my own hosting company and go big with that. But I was like, what do I want to do personally? For me, what do I value personally? And so I basically made a list of what I valued personally. And I'm like, you know what? It is more valuable for me and my intentions right now to not go down that route of creating a hosting company. Now, I did some experiments, and that's been fairly small scale. And if it were to grow, maybe I'm at the point where I could figure out how to outsource it appropriately and still do it with due diligence. But basically, that's my tip: is manage your backlog. Figure out what things you want to value and make those decisions like revolve around that, because otherwise you're going to suffer, and your life will suffer, and it won't be a good thing. And it'll probably just like make you just really, I don't know, just kind of want to check out of things. So there's your philosophical rant. Hopefully, it was brief enough for you. Okay, another one. If you were in the Twitter space couple weeks ago, there was a disagreement. I had a disagreement with someone, and I was like, I can't wait till some data shows up that we can show which one of us is right, and not that it's about right, but that we're sharing information. So basically, the disagreement was how that fiat to HNT conversion would work. Are they going to use data credits? Because it seemed like data credits were only going to be used for LoRa side. And here's in this Q&A was a mention of it was said if the calculation is right, 1 by 5G data credit will equal 20 kilobytes. Will all small data transactions be rounded up to 20 kilobytes? And then the answer was they will be rounded up to 1 data credit. So there's your answer. So there's data credits being involved in or leverage for paying for 5G. So that's the first time. If I didn't see it somewhere before, I've now seen it mentioned now. So if you also see it on the website, throw out the link, and then that would be good. Okay, skipping forward a few more questions. There's a lot of questions in this document about Wi-Fi, and even like, admittedly, I am a dummy when it comes to this. I mean, I know about setting up my own Wi-Fi network, right? Even understanding a little bit more, right? But I still have got a lot to learn here. So Wi-Fi 6 was mentioned a lot in this Q&A, and so basically more news is coming. That even at the next community call, I think you don't want to miss it. It's going to be really cool, talking about Wi-Fi stuff. And, why Wi-Fi offloading? We'll talk about that. Why is that important? I kind of threw out some ideas, roughly speaking, and I think I got some people to think. They didn't think about it that way. I think it was in relation to, what if I was in another state and I could somehow use Helium 5G, like Wi-Fi or Helium Wi-Fi, to somehow get onto my network at home. Like if wherever I was, that I could still like basically be in my network and it would be totally secure. So that was an interesting thing. That was an idea. And I don't know if that's technically right or not at this point, but all right, on with questions. Which Freedom Fi certified outdoor radios will have external antenna connection options, right? We're all about the upgrades, right? And growing the coverage. So specifically the Bicell's 436Q is the soonest to have that option. And they're going to release that plug and play firmware for those in the May 2022 timeframe. So that's when you can get a really ginormous tower and put on your biggest antenna. So that, keep in mind, that's going to be super expensive. So, but it's interesting, their language there, plug and play firmware. So potentially, this isn't confirmed, but potentially you could buy one off the shelf from any of these distributors and then put the firmware on there. Maybe, I don't know, but that's it's interesting, at least. Okay, I'm gonna skip through a bunch of these questions. Oh no, my notes that I made is let's see here. I must have just skipped a lot. One thing is very important for those that have Freedom Fi miners already. They won't honor your warranty claims if it gets damaged by a PoE splitter. So a certified one is coming. So take note of that. Can I buy any Bicell's radio and use it with the Freedom Fi gateway? So I kind of just talked about that in the question before. So the answer is no. But I once called a company trying to source parts for my tower, and the person that I spoke to knew something about Helium and 5G specifically, and he was ready to send some radios my way. And I was like, whoa, I'd rather wait for some more guidance on that. But and he's like, well, it's the same like architecture or something like that he same type of equipment. I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. I'll keep that in my back pocket. But that's a great sign for something that was mentioned in the press release about it said Helium compatible equipment is going to be flagged. Like you're going to be able to search on these part sites for helium compatible. And if they get to that point and those little stickers get slapped uh, on equipment out there, we're going to be able to get equipment a lot faster, potentially much faster than what we've gotten with the LoRa side. Again, speculation, but again, I'm looking at all this and I'm like, how can I not get excited about this? And so this brings me to like one of my last points that I probably want to close with. Is that I've been, silent on a lot of other crypto projects. However, some recent headlines have got me thinking about the ramifications of a bigger link, and it's always been shilled at. If you watch on Twitter, they're talking about like it's in everybody's like goal to get on Elon Musk's radar. And so let me put some implications out there, and I can drop a link to this article. And I know even I saw on Reddit somebody was like, "Don't believe the hype," or like, "Stop it with the," um, you know, it's just like was crap. Like they're like, don't talk about that." Um, so the article talks about a company being bought by PayPal that works exclusively with Algorand. Algorand is a blockchain company that's out there. Um, if you're looking at the token, it's ALGO, and it's something that I've been interested in for a while. Um, but this is like weird how the knowledge kind of comes together. And so one of the investors of both Helium and Algorand is called Borderless Capital. So if you're also familiar with the space, I think another one is Skybridge Capital has also done some huge investments into Algorand. But I'm really trying to work the connections to Helium and how that ripples out through some blockchain technologies out there. So that if borderless capital is a link between Helium and Algorand, and then we get to PayPal. Well, if PayPal comes on board with Algorand, then all of that could really bolster a case for getting Elon's attention, right? He used to work, like, what founded PayPal. So if we get his attention with the Starlink project and like the stuff that we've been doing with Dish and Helium is still like it's not there isn't exclusivity in there, right? Well, now there's also rumors that Dish could be buying DirecTV, so like there's options available. So like really high likelihood of getting to outer space at this point. And I think that there's been many a tweets that have said by this time next year or something like that, or in the future, Helium will be in space. So that's really interesting. And so I know that there's a lot of supposition and plenty of ifs in putting all of that information together, and it could be very much like hope. Like, right, I'm just like the hopium is just I don't know, I'm a little too much of a Helium maxi now. So uh keep me grounded, folks. You can throw your speculations or disagreements in the comments. But to go from a silly little project, is like that won't work. Even a year ago, like people were like, "What are you doing?" And now I'm getting regularly at least one or two friends, if not more, friends and extended friends contacting me and saying, "Hey, how do I get into Helium?" So to go that far in a year is just amazing. So I'm now like, how much? What else can we do? So that's what I want to leave you with. Is like I'm really bullish on Helium as a project, and I'm just really impressed at how far we've come and how far it looks like how fast we're going. So I hope that this has been helpful. Again, throw them out there. I'll take a couple questions here as we close up. Only a couple minutes though. How many miners do you have? I think I'm down to like maybe a dozen now. Um, let's I think I'm a dozen. Yeah, because I've got quite a few with the People's Hotspot, and those are around the world, and those are 95% to the person who hosts them, it was really just intended to be a kind of a promotion thing for Helium. Back then, we're still struggling with supply chain issues, and so I had gotten a lot of miners. Right, I started this YouTube channel, and then just was like very blessed with a lot of miners that came to me, and so. Um, yeah, I had my chance, but I ended up disseminating those and basically selling them at cost to basically friends, family members, anybody. Because back then, I mean, a lot of people wanted them. They were selling for what, eight grand on 5 to 8 grand on eBay, and I did not do that. I never did that at all. Um, so uh, with the speculation, even, and I'm sure some people are kicking themselves, but I was like, hey, look, I don't, if that, cost is a blocker to you, then I'll just take the tokens. Um, so I took the tokens, for the price, because I believed in Helium, and I told them, I was like, if you want to wait, you can sure, we can decide whenever you get there. But so yeah, so I think I hit the 25, and then there's a couple more coming in. Um, there's one I haven't activated yet. Let's see here. I'm still trying to make contacts with a couple other manufacturers. I love testing them out, seeing what they're like, doing reviews of them, and then sharing that with the audience. So hey, I had to reach out to you a couple times. Would love to talk to you. If you've reached out to me on Discord, just ping me again. That's fine. Um, you should not need the physical SIM card. They only gave that out to 150 people to start with. You should be able to get your account set up through GigSky and do some initial testing, but the SIM card was not um, needed for or not given to everybody. So I apologize. I think I saw some questions from you on there, but I didn't quite get that to them in time. I'm doing my best, but like I talked about in my kind of rant, philosophical rant, you got to stick to the things that you value. So family is the most important. So yeah. All right. So that's where we're at now with all the 5G news and stuff. I hope you enjoyed this. Make sure that you liked the video. Hopefully we shared some information that you did not know. And then also gave props to a lot of the community that is putting this together. I'm definitely by no means, um, you know, the only person getting this information. So huge shout outs to them. Thank you so much for watching. Like, subscribe, hit the bell so you know when I'm streaming. Other than that, we'll see you in about 4 minutes if you want to jump on Twitter and have the space then. But we will see you then. Bye, everyone.